Amina had always imagined that love would choose her softly someday, like rain falling on thirsty soil. But in her uncle's home, dreams were a luxury she was never allowed to keep. At 19 she was already treated like a burden. Her aunt blamed her for every misfortune. A broken pot, a goat wandering off, even the drought that shriveled their fields. A girl without parents, they'd spit. Useless. Cursed. But Amina tried, every day, to bring sunlight into a house that had none. She sang to the younger cousins, fetched water before sunrise, and sewed until her fingers bled. Still, nothing she did ever filled the hole in their hearts where greed lived. One evening as the orange sun dipped low, a heavy knock thundered on their wooden door. A giant shadow stretched across the yard. It was Chief Baraka, old, stooped, and wrapped in dark robes that swallowed the light around him. His silence was louder than windstorms. Children hid behind their mothers when he passed. His last wife had died mysteriously before their first anniversary. No one dared ask how. Amina stepped back inside, heart pounding, but her uncle pulled her forward with a grip that bruised. "This is the girl," he said, smiling wide, wider than he had in years. Chief Baraka's expression did not change. Instead, he dropped a leather pouch onto the table. It exploded open, overflowing with cowries, gold pieces, and jewels that sparkled like stolen stars. Amina's aunt gasped, hand flying to her mouth in delight. Her uncle's eyes gleamed with hunger. "A bride price," Baraka said, his voice harsh like stones scraping together. "She will come with me at dawn." Amina felt the world tilt. "No," she whispered. Her uncle snapped his head toward her. "You should be grateful. A chief wants you." "Please," she begged, voice trembling. "I want to choose my own path. I want to." Her aunt's hand cracked across her cheek before she could finish. "This is your destiny," she snarled. "Your parents are dead because they were weak. We protected you, fed you. And now you repay us by saving this family." Amina's heart shattered. Saving? No. They were selling her. That night she packed silently, tears falling onto the single faded dress she owned. Every memory she folded into that cloth, her mother's laugh, her father's warm hands, felt like goodbye. Morning arrived too quickly. The villagers gathered as Baraka led Amina toward a waiting carriage. Whispers slithered through the air. "No bride lasts long in his home. They say he keeps secrets in the dark. May her spirit find peace, soon." Amina's knees weakened, but Baraka's guards marched beside her, spears pointed. Her uncle waved cheerfully, pretending not to notice the terror in her eyes. She looked back only once. "Please don't let them do this," she cried. But the villagers looked away, afraid of being cursed by her sorrow. The palace appeared like a beast made of stone, tall walls, iron gates, shadows thicker than night. The air felt colder there. Even the sun refused to shine too brightly. Servants didn't speak. They only bowed their heads and vanished through doorways like ghosts. Amina's new room was decorated with gold, silk, and jewels, enough riches to make any girl rejoice. But all she felt was dread. The windows were sealed with bars. The beautiful bed was too big, and too empty. No wedding feast. No music. No joy. Baraka had already disappeared somewhere deeper within the palace, where daylight dared not follow. Amina pressed her ear to the door, hoping to hear a friendly voice. Silence answered her, heavy as stone. She lay on the bed, sleepless, staring at the carved ceiling. Hot tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "I am not cursed. I am not cursed." Her breath caught suddenly. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She sat up. The sound was faint but unmistakable, like long nails dragging across the walls behind her bed. She held still, too afraid to move. The scratching grew louder, closer. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She pressed her back against the opposite wall, eyes fixed on the place the noise came from. And then, a whisper slipped through the darkness, raspy and chilling. "Amina." She froze. The voice knew her name, though she had never told a single soul in this palace. The next morning, Amina sat quietly as servants dressed her in heavy royal fabrics. Gold weighed down her neck. Bangles clinked like small cages around her wrists. She felt more like a trophy than a bride. Chief Baraka finally came to fetch her, walking with his slow, uneven steps. His silence was colder than the stone beneath their feet. He motioned for her to follow. No words of welcome. No smile. Only the echo of his staff knocking against the ground. He led her through vast hallways, more prison than palace. Tapestries covered every wall, painted with images of great kings and violent storms. Amina couldn't shake the feeling that the eyes in the paintings were watching her. Down one corridor, Baraka stopped before a massive iron door. Rusty chains bound it tight, 3 thick locks sealing it shut. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, symbols that looked like claws and fangs. Baraka's voice broke the silence. "You must never open this door," he commanded. Amina swallowed. "What is inside?" His jaw clenched. "Nothing that concerns you." His staff slammed against the floor, and a gust of cold air burst from beneath the door, raising goosebumps on Amina's skin. She stepped back instinctively. Baraka straightened, his eyes sharp and hard. "Disobedience here is punished. Severely." He guided her away before she could ask more. Days passed. Long, lonely days. Every meal was eaten alone. Servants spoke only when necessary. Baraka barely looked at her. At night, he slept in another chamber entirely. No husband's affection, no companionship, just emptiness wrapped in silk. Amina stared out of the barred windows, wondering if she would die in this place. She whispered prayers to ancestors she had never met, hoping someone could hear her. Hope was the only thing she still owned. But hope didn't keep away the night's horrors. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Just like before, every night the sound returned. And something else. Low, rumbling growls echoing through the stone floors, as though a creature lived beneath the palace. Amina lay awake, trembling, clutching her blanket to her chest. Sometimes the growling turned to crying. Deep, guttural sobs that sounded more like suffering than rage. She didn't know which terrified her more. One night, driven by fear and desperation, she grabbed a small candle and crept through the hallway. The palace was silent except for the faint rattle of chains somewhere below. Her bare feet padded across cold marble until she stood in front of the forbidden iron door. Her candle flame flickered violently as if warning her to run. She placed her palm on the metal, and instantly recoiled. The door was warm. Too warm, like something alive breathed behind it. Footsteps echoed from behind her. Panic seized her heart. She rushed back to her room, blew out the candle and jumped into bed, pretending to sleep. A moment later, Baraka entered, limping quietly. He didn't look at her, just sank onto the edge of his mattress and exhaled painfully. Amina peeked through half-closed eyes. The moonlight revealed deep scratches on his arms, fresh, raw claw marks that dripped with blood. His sleeves were shredded, his breathing rough and uneven. It looked like he had been in a violent struggle. Her pulse quickened. Had something attacked him? Or had he attacked something? Baraka leaned forward, head in hands, muttering words she didn't understand. His whole body trembled. Amina dared not move. She watched the moon slide across the sky as time stretched unbearably long. Then midnight struck. Baraka suddenly froze. His shoulders stiffened. His head lifted slowly, too slowly. The moonlight touched his face. Amina's breath caught in her throat. His eyes, they were not human. A wild, glowing yellow consumed his pupils, animalistic and fierce. His teeth ground together as if fighting back a scream. Veins bulged in his temples. His hands, clenched into claws, twitched uncontrollably. He opened his mouth and a low snarl crawled out of his throat. Amina pressed her lips shut, afraid even the sound of her breathing would draw his attention. She had never known fear like this, fear with a heartbeat, fear that stared right at her through the darkness. Baraka rose to his feet, back arched unnaturally, bones shifting beneath his skin as if they wanted to break free. Her husband was changing. Amina squeezed her eyes shut, praying he hadn't seen her awake. The chains beneath the palace rattled louder, answering to him, calling to him. Baraka staggered toward the door, gripping the frame as if barely in control of his own body. And before he left, he looked back once. Those beast-yellow eyes locked onto Amina. She nearly screamed. Then he disappeared into the shadows of the hallway, leaving her to wonder whether the monster in this palace was truly locked behind that iron door, or sleeping in the room next to hers. Amina barely slept after witnessing Baraka's transformation. Her pulse kept racing long after dawn arrived, and every sound in the palace made her flinch. When she stepped into the dining hall that morning, she noticed something new. Baraka was nowhere to be found. Only an elderly servant named Mama Lela stood by the table, her eyes heavy with secrets she could no longer keep. Amina hesitated before speaking. "Where is he?" Mama Lela looked around to make sure no guards were listening, then leaned close. "I warned them not to bring another bride. I begged them," her voice broke into a trembling whisper. "But they never listen." Amina's heart dropped. "What do you mean, another bride?" Her mind raced back to the villagers' whispers. "No bride lasts more than a year." Lela wiped her palms anxiously against her apron. You must think carefully before you ask any more questions, child. Once you know the truth, you can never go back. But Amina's voice rose, fear sharpening her words. Tell me, please. The old woman sighed deeply, shoulders sagging as if she had carried this burden alone for far too long. Chief Baraka was once like any man, strict and proud but not cruel. Then, on the night of the last eclipse, something changed. Her fingers traced the beads around her neck as she continued. A spirit of the dark forest cursed him. Now, every night when the moon rises, he is not himself. Amina's blood ran cold. He becomes a beast. Mama Lela nodded slowly. A creature with claws sharp enough to shred bone. Fangs that tear through flesh. He does not think, does not remember, only hunts. Amina pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her breath. Has he ever hurt someone? Mama Lela swallowed. The queen. She discovered his secret and tried to escape the night the curse began. Her voice trembled. No one ever found her body. Amina covered her mouth, choking on a cry. So they locked the beast behind that iron door, Mama Lela whispered. Every night, the guards chain him inside to protect the village, and protect whoever is foolish enough to marry him. Amina's hands shook. Why marry me to him? Why not keep him alone? Because a chief must have an heir, Lela answered bitterly. And his curse does not take hold until the sun sets. She stared into Amina's frightened eyes. They hoped, maybe this bride would survive long enough to carry a child. A sickening wave of horror washed over Amina. She was not a wife, they had offered her as a sacrifice. For a moment she couldn't breathe. I need to leave, she whispered. Before nightfall. Before he. Lela grabbed her wrist. No. If you flee, he will scent your fear and hunt you to the edge of the earth. There is no running from him. Amina felt trapped in her own skin. She wanted to scream, to claw her way out of this nightmare. If Baraka could lose control so completely, then last night if she had made one wrong move, one sound, she would be dead. Her voice shook. What can I do? What chance do I have? The old servant looked at her with pity deeper than any grave. Pray the sun never sets, she whispered. But the sun always sets. That night, shadows stretched long across the palace floor. Amina paced her room, fear gnawing at her sanity. She jumped every time the wind rattled a window or a guard's spear scraped the stone. Then, a roar thundered through the halls. Not a human cry. Not even close. The guards shouted orders, panic filling their voices. Metal clanged, chains being pulled tight. Amina rushed to her door but dared not open it. She pressed her ear against the wood, heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Roaring. Snarling. Something slamming against walls. Desperate shouts turned into screams. Suddenly, a bone-shaking crash. Silence. Amina backed away slowly. Her breath frosted in front of her lips. The air grew cold, too cold. Then she heard it. Heavy footsteps. Dragging. Getting closer. Amina's heart shot into her throat. She grabbed the bedpost to steady herself. The door handle twisted once, slowly. It stopped. Another roar erupted, shaking dust from the ceiling. The thing outside stumbled away, leaving deep claw marks gouged into the wood. Amina wanted to sink to the floor and sob, but she forced herself to stay quiet. Stay alert. Minutes passed. Or hours. Time lost meaning in terror. Then, from deeper in the palace, a violent explosion echoed. A second roar. Chains whipping. Guards screaming again. Amina rushed to the window and saw torches darting across the courtyard. Guards running. Servants fleeing. And there, in the distance, Baraka's monstrous shape writhing in front of the iron door. It rattled furiously, sparks flying as claws scraped the metal. He slammed his mutated body against it, once, twice. The chains burst. The door flew open, swinging into darkness. Amina's scream died in her throat as something unseen but massive grabbed Baraka by the neck and yanked him into the depths beyond. The iron door slammed shut with a violent clang, and the palace fell silent. The palace stayed silent far too long. Amina stared at the iron door from her window, fingers gripping the windowsill until her knuckles turned white. Every instinct screamed for her to hide, to wait for sunrise, to pretend none of this was real. But questions pounded at her skull like storm winds. What was behind that door? What dragged Baraka away? How many have suffered this curse? If she did nothing, she would be next. Fear made her legs tremble, but courage made them move. She slipped out of her cold, golden prison of a bedroom and crept down the corridor, following the faint trail of scratches the beast had left on the stone floor. The moonlight through cracked windows guided her, silver and eerie. The palace looked different now, alive in the worst way. Shadows twitched. The wind moaned through broken gaps. Steps echoed too loudly as if the palace wanted to expose her. When she reached the forbidden hallway, the massive iron door stood half open, its broken chains slithering across the floor like metallic serpents. Each step closer stole another piece of her courage. She whispered a shaky prayer and pushed the door wide. Cold air rushed out, damp and old, carrying the stench of rust and forgotten screams. Stone steps spiraled downward, torchlight flickering below. With every descent, the growls and clinking chains grew louder, and more voices joined the chorus, pleading, confused, angry. Amina's heart hammered against her ribs. Her feet wanted to turn back. But something deeper, a stubborn spark of bravery, forced her forward. At the bottom of the steps, she entered a long underground tunnel. Bars lined either side, forming cell after cell, a hidden prison beneath the palace. Shapes lurked inside the darkness. At first she thought they were animals. But then one stepped into the torchlight. A woman's face, twisted with fur creeping over her jaw. Human eyes, but pupils sharpened like a wolf's. Hands gripping the bars, with claws instead of nails. Amina gasped and stumbled backward. The creature spoke. And the voice was heartbreakingly human. "Help us." Amina froze. "We once lived in this village," another prisoner said, a thin man with horns pushing through his scalp. "Baraka took us, one by one, told our families we died in accidents. Cursed us," whispered a child no older than 12 whose skin was turning scaly like a reptile. They all stepped closer, eyes desperate and wet with tears. "Before we lose ourselves forever. Before the curse eats what remains of our souls. Free us." Amina's voice cracked. "Why would he do this to you? To all of us?" An elder with feathers sprouting along his spine rasped, "Because he is ashamed. He hides us here so the world sees only a mighty chief, not a cursed monster." The truth hit Amina like a blade to the chest. Baraka hadn't been hiding the beast inside him. He had been hiding the victims of his own tragedy. She looked down the corridor, and her stomach twisted. Dozens more cages. Dozens more cursed. Curses meant to remain unseen. Amina pressed a hand to her lips, fighting back a sob. This wasn't just horror, this was cruelty crafted in silence. A guard's spear lay abandoned on the ground. She picked it up, knuckles white around the wood shaft. More prisoners spoke at once. "He brought girls here. Sometimes they screamed. No one ever saw them again." Amina closed her eyes for a moment, fighting the image of the missing queen, imagining the creature she married tearing into her flesh. These people were prisoners of fear. She was a prisoner of a marriage. One cell door rattled violently. Something inside roared. A creature twice the size of the others lurched forward, a monstrous figure with fur tearing through its skin, teeth jagged and blood-stained. Amina stumbled back, nearly dropping the spear. "That one," the elder whispered shakily. "That one becomes lost more each night. If the curse completes, he will never return to human form." Amina's voice trembled. "Then why keep him alive?" The elder answered with a haunted, sorrow-filled stare. "Because hope dies last. Even in a nightmare." Amina turned, and saw blood smeared along the floor. And claw marks, fresh ones, leading deeper into the dungeon. Baraka. The beast hadn't escaped. He had retreated. Or been dragged. Amina followed the trail with the spear still in hand, torchlight flickering against damp walls. The air turned hotter, thicker, as if she were walking into breath itself. The tunnel ended at a massive chamber. Iron cages lay shattered. Bones scattered the floor. The walls were carved with old runes, like the ones on the iron door, meant to trap creatures of the night. In the center lay the beast, Baraka, barely moving. His giant form heaved, fur matted with sweat and blood. He looked both terrifying and pitiful. But he was not alone. Another creature stood above him, chained by the neck to the far wall. Ribs protruded from its sides, eyes sunken yet burning bright with madness. It was the monster who dragged him, larger than Baraka, more evolved in the curse. It growled, glaring at Amina, but the chains held strong. Baraka tried to lift his head. His monstrous voice cracked into a human groan. "Amit na." Her breath froze. Behind her, the cursed prisoners rattled their chains, calling out again, begging for salvation. "Please? Free us. You are the only one who can." Amina's head spun. So many lives trapped. So many horrors. She couldn't free them, not yet. But she couldn't let this curse consume her future or their lives. She stepped backward, spear raised, ready to retreat, and nearly screamed when she saw something gleaming on the wall. A mirror. Just a simple mirror, cracked, dusty. She turned her face toward it. Her heartbeat stopped. Her eyes, the pupils, they were beginning to change. Yellow, bright yellow, coloring the edges like a wildfire creeping through. She staggered back, clutching her temples. No, no, please no. Her breath broke into frightened gasps. The curse wasn't just around her. It was inside her. Even without the beast's bite or claws, something had passed to her. Baraka's scent. His blood. His curse. The mirror showed her fate. A beast wife. A monster in waiting. A scream crawled up her throat, but she forced it down. If she lost control, she would become like them, caged by fear, ruled by darkness. Amina wiped tears from her cheeks and stared at the mirror one last time, like staring at a warning. If I don't fight, I will become him. She tightened her grip on the spear. For the first time since arriving in this cursed palace, hope didn't guide her. Determination did. Amina stood frozen, breath trembling, as the mirror's terrible truth stared back at her. The faint, sickly glow of yellow spreading into her once soft brown eyes. A sign that the curse was already reaching for her, sinking its claws into her blood. She stumbled back, pressing her hand against her racing heart. The dungeon air was cold, but the fear burning inside her felt like fire. Behind her, the locked cell doors rattled as the imprisoned villagers, half beast, half human, stretched their claws through the rusty bars. They watched her with desperate hunger in their widening eyes. Hunger for freedom. Hunger for hope. Amina, one prisoner said in a cracked, sorrowful voice. You are turning. He plans to bind you to his fate. Her pulse slammed in her ears. The weight of the magic key, cold and heavy, sat in her trembling hand. She had stolen it while Baraka was dragged into the iron door, while he screamed like a beast being swallowed by the dark. That key meant life or death. Not just for her, but for all of them. Her thoughts screamed, run. Escape while there's time. But another voice inside her rose higher, steadier. No more running. No more fear. She looked at the chained prisoners, their bodies twisted by a curse they never asked for. She saw mothers, warriors, elders, their memories fading behind monstrous skin. Their eyes pleaded, help us, before we disappear forever. Amina stepped closer to the cells. Baraka lied to you. He stole your lives, your families, your humanity. But I won't let him steal mine. Not anymore. Tonight we end this curse together. Her voice shook, but it didn't break. She thrust the key toward the first lock. The old metal groaned, then clicked open. The prisoner staggered out, falling to his knees as if the ground itself welcomed him back. Amina unlocked more doors, faster now, each release followed by gasps, low growls, and the sound of chains hitting stone floors. Shapes shifted in the dim light. Bodies stretched, bones cracked, skin shimmered as the curse struggled between beast and human. Some wept. Some roared. But all of them lifted their faces to Amina as if she were the dawn itself. Then came a thunderous roar, Baraka. He burst from the shadows on all fours, towering, monstrous. His fur bristled like spears, his fangs dripping. The curse had devoured him completely. There was no man left inside those glowing venom-yellow eyes. He saw Amina and charged, claws tearing stones from the floor. The freed beasts leapt between them, shielding her. Baraka snarled, snapping his jaws. Amina raised her voice, strong as a battle cry. We do not obey monsters anymore. The cursed attacked, fury unleashed after years of imprisonment. They ripped into Baraka's flesh, knocking him down. For a moment she thought they would tear him apart limb by limb. But then Amina screamed, louder than the chaos. Stop. Her command halted them mid-strike. Even Baraka froze, panting, blood pooling beneath him. The beast slowly stepped back. Amina, heart pounding, walked forward, toward the monster who had stolen everything from her. Baraka tried to speak, but only a broken growl escaped. She knelt beside him, not with fear, but with pity. You used your suffering to create more suffering, she whispered. You turned your curse into a weapon. His body quaked, hatred and horror clashing within him. But I will not become what you made me, she said. Her hand lifted the key, now glowing with strange, powerful light. She pressed it against the foreheads of the prisoners one by one. With every touch, the curse cracked and melted away like mist at sunrise. Their bodies returned to human, limbs shrinking, faces softening, tears falling freely. They stared at themselves, human again, whispering Amina's name through sobs. Baraka alone remained a beast. Amina approached him again. The key trembled in her hand, responding to the choice before her. End him. Or save him. Baraka whimpered, the first sound of fear she had ever heard from him. Please, he rasped, the beastly voice shaking with pain. And this. She stared into his monstrous eyes and saw regret. Too late, too broken, but real. Her own yellow glow dimmed. The curse was releasing her too. She spoke with quiet strength. No. Your death will not heal what you destroyed. What? Learn. Feel what it means to be powerless, the way you made others feel. Baraka's chest heaved with a sob, half roar, half cry, as he collapsed at her feet. Villagers gathered around Amina, freed, shaking, alive. They looked to her not as a girl, but as their savior. One woman bowed deeply. You broke the chains. You broke the curse. Amina lifted her eyes to the stone ceiling above them, imagining the sky beyond. The moon must be shining. A new night. A new life. We walk out of this place together, she said. They followed her up the dark stairs, emerging into the cool night air. Stars blinked like ancestors watching with pride. Amina stood tall, her feet planted in freedom. The wind brushed her hair like a blessing. Behind her, the hidden prison echoed with one last cry, Baraka's grief swallowed by darkness. He was now the only beast left. And she was the breaker of chains. Hook ending, deep in the dungeon, Baraka curled into a trembling heap, the moon revealing tears on his fur. He did not beg for power anymore. He begged for death. Amina stood at the palace gates as dawn painted the sky with pale gold. The air smelled of dust and freedom. The once cursed villagers gathered around her, clothed in gratitude and trembling disbelief. They were no longer beasts. They were people reborn. Behind her, deep underground, Baraka's broken roars still echoed. The monster who had ruled in fear was now the one afraid. Amina glanced back only once, voice steady as she spoke the final words he would ever hear from her. May you feel the pain you caused others. Live with the weight of it. He froze, understanding. She wasn't giving him mercy. She was giving him consequence. Baraka crawled away into the wild forests at the edge of the kingdom, never looking back. The villagers would later say he became a ghost among the trees, unseen but always grieving. Amina turned toward the village, her chin lifted, eyes clear. Each step she took forward felt like rewriting fate itself. The once terrified bride had become the storm that destroyed her chains. As sunlight spilled over the rooftops, villagers emerged from their homes. Children pointed in awe, elders gasped, and whispers filled the morning air. She freed the cursed. She stood up to the monster. She is not just a bride, she is our savior. Amina felt their eyes on her, but not the way Baraka had looked at her. This time there was respect. This time there was hope. The freed victims walked behind her like a procession of survival. Mothers reunited with children who thought them dead, husbands embracing wives returned from nightmares. Tears flowed freely, washing away years of fear. Amina lifted her hands to quiet them. No more girls sold like cattle, she declared, voice ringing like a bell. No more secrets in the night. No more walls built on silence. Her words swept through the crowd like fire catching dry grass. Marriage will not be a prison. Power will not give permission to steal life. We will protect each other, every daughter, every son. The chief's advisors, once loyal to Baraka, stepped forward, kneeling at her feet. Guide us, one said. We were blind. We forgot that strength is meant to shield, not devour. Amina breathed in slowly. Leadership had never been her dream, but freedom had always been her right. I will lead only if we lead together, she replied, offering her hand to lift them up. Villagers cheered, pounding their walking sticks, singing the old ancestral songs. They carried Amina to the center of the square where a new dawn council was formed, one chosen by the people. They called her the girl who broke the night. Her name became a story mothers whispered while braiding their daughters' hair. Amina visited every home where injustice had ever lived. She tore up marriage contracts sealed by greed. She gave choices back to the young, voices back to the voiceless. She turned fear's silence into a roar of unity. And every night, as she walked through the village she helped restore, children would follow her, laughing and safe under the moonlight. The monster who once prowled the shadows was gone. Yet, some nights, when the moon was full and bright, the same moon that had birthed the curse, Amina would pause. She'd feel a quiver in her heartbeat. The world would blur for just a moment, and in the reflection of a water jar, her eyes would shimmer gold. Faint, fleeting, like a memory of darkness that refused to fully die. She would steady herself and whisper, I will not be what they tried to make me. She would look up at the moon, the silent witness to her suffering and her victory, and smile thinly, knowing she must always watch the night. Because fate had tried to break her. Instead, she changed fate. And somewhere deep in the forest, a pair of beast-like eyes also glowed gold, watching the same moon. Watching the same light. Suffering the consequences of a curse he once used to rule. Amina closed her eyes, letting the cool night breeze wrap around her like a promise. Her story was not just survival. It was a revolution. Justice had begun. Fear had ended. And the darkness would think twice before returning. For the girl they once tried to chain had become the woman who guarded every chain that would never again be locked. Whispers of the curse faded with time, but not entirely. Nights in the village still carried a strange chill, a reminder of what once lurked beneath the chief's skin. Amina walked the palace halls not as a frightened bride anymore, but as a leader, one chosen by fate and respected by the people. Children smiled when she passed. Women bowed not from fear but gratitude. And men who once laughed at her suffering now guarded her walls with loyal hearts. But peace is always tested. One evening, as the moon hung full and bright over the rooftops, the sound of horns shattered the calm. Hunters dragged in a man covered in mud, trembling, growling. His clothes were torn, his hair wild, and his nails long enough to scrape stone. When he lifted his head, Amina froze. Baraka. He looked thinner, almost hollow, yet his beast-yellow eyes still glowed with restless rage. But there was something else, fear. He stumbled forward and collapsed at Amina's feet, claws retracting, breath uneven. "Help me," he gasped, each word like broken glass in his throat. The hunters raised their spears, ready to end what remained of the monster. Amina raised her hand firmly. "No one touches him." Gasps echoed around her. How could she protect the one who had once caged her? The one who had forced her into marriage? The one whose curse had destroyed countless lives? But Amina remembered the promise she had made, not to become the very cruelty she fought against. "Bring him to the healer's hut," she commanded. Baraka's eyes widened, confusion mixing with shame. He expected death, not mercy. And that mercy tormented him more deeply than a blade ever could. Later, Amina stood outside the hut where he rested, unsure if she should enter. The healer approached her, whispering, "He is dying. The curse eats him from the inside. He has days, maybe hours." Amina swallowed her pain. She entered quietly. Baraka lay curled in a corner, sweat running down his face. When he noticed her, he tried sitting up, but the chains around his energy pulled him back down. He stared at her, helpless and desperate. "You should have let them kill me," he hissed weakly. "And become like you?" Amina replied quietly. "No. I choose a different path." His breathing cracked and memories surfaced like wounds reopening. "I was once a good man," Baraka whispered. "Until the night the curse took me. I begged the spirits to spare her. My wife. They didn't. Rage consumed me. Power became my mask." Amina listened, not with sympathy but with resolve. "Everyone has a story. Even monsters. You hide behind your curse," she said, her voice steady. "But the beast was not the worst part of you. The choices were." Baraka closed his eyes, tears forming. Tears? From the man who believed himself incapable of love or regret. "You freed them," he murmured. "All those I hurt, you made them human again. And now you must become human too," Amina answered. Baraka looked up, almost childlike. "How?" Amina placed her palm over his trembling hand. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, the lingering power of the curse she had shattered in others. "By facing the pain you caused," she whispered. "Not running from it." For a long moment Baraka stared into her eyes, seeing the girl he had bought like property, now transformed into a woman who carried storms in her soul. Amina rose to leave, but Baraka spoke one last time. "You broke my darkness, and I don't deserve it." "No," Amina said gently. "But the future does." She stepped out under the moonlight where the villagers waited, anxious. "What will happen to him?" a young girl asked. Amina looked toward the horizon where night met dawn, where fear met hope. "He will remain here," she said. "Not as a chief, not as a monster, but as a reminder. No curse is stronger than a heart that refuses to become cruel." The villagers nodded, slowly accepting this new world Amina was building. One where justice did not demand blood and mercy was power, not weakness. She lifted her face to the moon. For a moment, just a small one, her eyes shimmered gold again. The beast's leftover magic pulsed beneath her skin. A warning. A gift. A burden. Amina smiled, soft but fearless. If the darkness tried to return, it would find her ready. For she was no longer the girl sold to a nightmare. She was the woman who survived it and rewrote the ending.